Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. I'm your host, Jimmy Ardwan, along with my co-host, Damon Parrish. And for the next hour, we're going to be talking criminal justice issues here in Houston, Harris County, and beyond. And we've got a great show tonight with our guests, Lisa Shapiro-Strauss and Phil Gommels, both members of the HCCLA board. It's been a busy week, Damon. Really busy week.
It's been a busy week.
A lot of news, breaking news. We thought we weren't going to have much of a show leading into last week, and then the world turns.
And they bring us good stuff and bad stuff.
They do, and I want to remind our viewers that starting at the 8:30 hour, we're going to halfway into the show, we'll take your phone calls. We'll flash the phone number up at the bottom of the screen, and send us your tweets, any comments, any questions you have throughout the night for either us or our guests. Send them to us at HCCLA_TV. You can also go on our Facebook page. You can like us. You can leave us a comment there. We'll get your comments on. It's a big news day today because yesterday, Damon, we found out that
we officially found out.
We kind of knew last week based on our guest Casey Gautreaux being on last week. We knew unofficially.
And hopefully our viewers knew as well. All right, if they were listening.
If they were listening,
yeah. Paying attention.
If they were, but yesterday we got these. We got the findings of fact and conclusions of law issued by State District Judge Larry Gist out of Beaumont, and he held the habeas hearing on David Temple. And our guest last week, Casey Gautreaux and Stan Schneider, they were David Temple's lawyers during the habeas portion. And David Temple, of course, was convicted of murder back in 2007.
Right.
He was represented then by Dick DeGuerin and Neil Davis at the trial stage. And of course, the prosecutor in that case was Kelly Siegler.
Our own Cole Justice.
A cold justice.
Cold Justice.
TNT. I think that might be
So warm it up a little bit.
Well, I think cold justice may actually be a pretty good title when you read these findings of fact and conclusions of law. But I want to bring in the guests for tonight, Lisa Shapiro-Strauss and Phil Gommels. Both of you are former prosecutors. You're now on the defense side. Board members of HCCLA, like I said. This is, to say it's damning is really probably doesn't give damning enough of a justice.
It's frightening, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's frightening and disturbing.
The findings of fact starting on page 9 outline the exculpatory evidence portion that was really the reason why Judge Gist granted a new trial or recommended that the Court of Appeals grant a new trial in this case. And it outlines 36 instances, 36.
36 separate and distinct instances. And when you think about it, what that represents is a systematic denial of due process and justice. I mean, you can think maybe one or two things might slip. Kelly Siegler's a human. We all make mistakes. And so you can imagine in a very publicized trial, maybe one document might not slip through. And that's a mistake, but it's okay, it happens. Shouldn't, but it does. But with 36, you know with 36 that there was a systematic, and by systematic I mean an intentional thought process to deny this evidence, something routinely done out of habit. And then you go to her excuse, well, I didn't believe it was truthful. I didn't believe that those documents were truthful, so I didn't think they should be disclosed. They weren't Brady. And my thought to that is, of course you didn't believe it because it didn't support your theory. And had it supported her theory, then they would have been turned over immediately and used during trial. So.
Obviously, there's a lot of stuff in here. Reports not showing up, people being interviewed that perhaps the offense reports didn't exactly reflect what those persons' statements were. But to me, you get down towards the end, and I feel it's the last few items that are kind of the most egregious, where when you read it, it's hard to even articulate it because it appears as though she took a very concerted effort when people started to come forward and talk about the misconduct and, well, that isn't really what I said, this evidence should have been brought forward. It's pretty clear to me and anybody who reads this, that Kelly Siegler took a very proactive approach, and some of this is after she left the office, to get involved in hiring people, helping hire people, attorneys, trying to get people to change their stories. This is pretty offensive.
And not only that, Jimmy, the thing that was surprising to me from Judge Gist's opinion was he didn't just call out her behavior, like you said, during the trial back in, I think it was 2007. He didn't just call out her behavior intervening, but also in these habeas proceedings, he called her out and said specifically she lied to the court. So these are the kinds of things that we've seen in the past. We saw it with Ken Anderson covering his tracks in the Michael Morton case in Williamson County.
Right.
And we saw what happened with Ken Anderson. He was disbarred. These things might be on the horizon for Kelly Siegler, I think.
Lisa, I want to ask you, because earlier today you posted on Facebook that when you were a prosecutor, Kelly was one of your idols.
I was a prosecutor in Dallas County, and probably when you were in high school. I know Damon was.
I was in high school with your sister.
I know, that's how I know how old you are. Not to date myself, but when I was a prosecutor, and I went to baby prosecutor school in Austin, and they bring the best and the brightest to teach the new prosecutors how to be the best they can be, and she was my idol. I mean, I was in Dallas, she was in Houston, but she was one of those people that I thought hung the moon. And if I thought that, and I just had that limited exposure to her, for a 3-day period in school, I can only imagine how the people that worked under her in her office all these years, and all the attorneys who came into contact with her. I mean, she was the standard of what, you aspired to be as a prosecutor. And for now to come back and find out that she wasn't playing fair and may have even been purposely covering things up, it really unravels everything you might have learned from her as your example.
And Lisa, you talk about Harris County producing back in that era many of the prosecutors who were widely known throughout the state as being some of the best and brightest prosecutors of their time. And we saw that John Bradley, in that same case with Ken Anderson, was a product of Harris County, also disgraced. We also see now Connie Spence back in February.
She still works there.
That's exactly right. She back in February, a retired DEA agent came out and said she tried to intimidate me. Told me to testify only to the things that she wanted me to testify to, and if I didn't, she said she was going to make up an affair that I hadn't had, and cross-examine me about that. And those allegations, like you said, Damon, have still to be addressed by either the district attorney's office, Devin Anderson, or any other authority. To this point, she's still working the office and heading the major offenders unit.
And she will be there. I want to ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
As prosecutors, and you have Connie Spence, you have Kelly Siegler, you have Johnny Holmes. None of you guys worked on Johnny Holmes. Do you think this is part of the culture of being a prosecutor, or do you think these are one-offs that just happen to reach the limelight because of their fame and their celeb status amongst prosecutors?
I think it's a little of both, Damon. I'll say that I was thinking about this today as I was getting ready for the show. I remember a time when I was preparing for a trial, and I had, I was a baby prosecutor, probably 6 months in the office, and Tyler Flood came up to me and he said, you have a duty to produce this to me under Brady. It was something that was in the possession of Houston Police Department. And I said, no, I don't. I don't have it. It's not in my file. I don't have any duty to produce anything. And he said, well, haven't you read these cases? And truthfully, I hadn't. And the culture that I was being steeped in had told me, the people around me had told me, you have no duty to produce the things that aren't in your possession, and that's just legally not true.
That's ethically not true, and morally. I mean, that is, and that I think is the cornerstone of why we keep seeing these things happen.
Right.
Let me throw this out to you, because obviously what we're talking about is training.
Right.
What obligation since a lot of graduates, especially from here in Houston and South Texas and U of H, end up in our Harris County DA's office, what obligation do the law schools have to cover these types of things? I mean, this is major stuff. Instead of getting into the theoretical stuff, at what point do we need to start teaching people before they become lawyers what the ethical duties are of a lawyer?
I think that there's a lot, not just as a prosecutor, but also a lot of defense attorneys who could use some real lessons in ethics. I think we all know many of them. But I think that the law schools have a duty, but I also think, unfortunately, you're going to have if you have 100 law students, only 2 or 3 are going to go into criminal law, so they're going to zone out the lesson on Brady, when it comes down to the specifics. But I do think you do, as you're taught from your superiors, when you're a number 3 misdemeanor new baby prosecutor or even an intern, you're watching those ahead of you. This is how it's done. And if this is how it's done by Kelly Siegler, you're going to do the same thing that someone like a Kelly Siegler did, because that's what got her to where she was in office.
And this is, look, Dick DeGuerin tried this case, and I've had the good fortune of being in a couple cases where Dick has represented some co-defendants, and in fact, I had the fortune early on in my career to work with him on a case and represent the same client. And I will tell you, anybody who say what you will about Dick, like him, hate him, whatever, Dick is one of the most prepared lawyers to ever step into a courtroom. He leaves no stone unturned. That is why he has been so successful and so great as a lawyer. And as a defense lawyer, one of the reasons why I look up to him and so many other defense lawyers look up to him is because of the way he investigates a case. We all know defense lawyers who do not fulfill their obligations in properly investigating a case, but that accusation could never be made or never be said about Dick DeGuerin, but he was hamstrung in this case.
Jimmy, I want to go back to your question about the law school.
Yeah.
We as lawyers, we know law school does not teach you to be a lawyer.
No.
I don't know what it teaches you. You come out of law school and you're not ready to practice law. You don't know how to find and research case law. That's great. You know where criminal law is and civil law and family code and that kind of stuff. But coming out of law school and being a lawyer doesn't prepare you for it. Not like medical school. So I think if you go to the DA's office that has or any kind of professional setting that has a setting where you start off small and grow big, you should be educated to grow big right. In Harris County, they don't take a prosecutor straight from graduating law school and now you're trying first-degree felonies. You start out as if I'm wrong, let me know.
No, you're right.
You start out as a third degree or a Class B, number 3 in misdemeanor. You might go to JP Court, work on traffic tickets and Class Cs, and you work your way up and you prove through being a good prosecutor that you can handle the next ones up. I think that culture should teach them and to teach in both in the civil and in DA's office how to be ethical.
But I guess the question also is, how are they proving that they're a quote unquote good prosecutor? Is it because they win cases at all costs, like this situation? I read the quote today, I think it was Susan Chris wrote, or no, it was from Lisa Falkenberg's article where she said about being a good prosecutor, to win at all costs. Well, how you're going to hide things so you can win at all costs, but that's not what you're charged with. You're charged with doing, justice, and the facts are the facts. And if there was stuff out there that it wasn't her place to judge what was truthful and not truthful. They should have, like you said, he was hamstringed. He should have had all of the evidence, and none of it should have been hidden, just like in Anthony Graves, just like in Michael Morton, and then let the defense attorney sift through it and decide what's relevant.
Well, and we sat here last week talking about, Damon, the Supreme Court passing, making same-sex marriage legal, and how our county clerk and some other county clerks around, not just Texas, but other parts of the country, were refusing to issue same-sex marriage licenses.
And how embarrassing it is for us.
But the response that a lot of people had, if you look at social media and everything else, was do your job. You're an elected official. As a prosecutor, you are a civil servant. You may have the elected DA, but those ADAs, you are a civil servant. You are there to do your job, and the job detail is to follow the law and what the law says. It's not to win at all costs.
No.
It's not like you're at Fulbright and Jaworski or Vincent and Elkins, where maybe it's a little different than you still have to play. Even then, you still have to play within the ethics, but.
Exactly.
You have a different deal. As the state, they'll sometimes argue that they're the victims or the complainants are their clients, but they're really not. Their clients are the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
And all the citizens, not just victims and not just complainants, right?
Right. And the facts are the facts. They have to play with all the cards they're dealt. We can't change our facts. They shouldn't be able to change theirs. If they get the facts and they have an interview by one investigator and they decide they don't think it's true or not, that's not their choice to decide which to show and which not. Give everything over and then let the jury decide. It's not the prosecutor's job.
So, and we talked about promoting up the ranks, and I know we're in Harris County. Phil, you worked at the DA's office.
Right.
honestly, how are you moved through the ranks from starting off as a number 3 in misdemeanor up to maybe one day a Kelly Sigler-esque bureau chief?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the perception of you in the office. Honestly, if you are perceived to be a good prosecutor, whatever that means, by the people who are, and getting noticed by the people who are doing those making those decisions.
Right.
That's how you move through the ranks. I'll give you a good example of one of because I don't want to paint the entire Harris County District Attorney's Office as a bad organization.
And nor should you.
I'll give you a good example of a prosecutor who was promoted through the ranks for a really great reason. Tanisha Manning is known in the District Attorney's Office as one of the most prepared prosecutors there are. And one of the things that I learned early in my career as a prosecutor, and a lot of prosecutors learn, is the way that you leave your caseload when you get transferred to a new court is one of the best ways to get noticed as a good and thorough and prepared prosecutor. So having all your calls made to all your victims, documenting your file really well, making sure that you've gotten all your reports and all your evidence gathered timely, so that when you leave the court, the prosecutor comes behind you isn't just overloaded with work. And to get to, and that kind of brings up another point that goes back to why we're in this position in the first place, which is that many of the Harris County prosecutors are overburdened. We have 15 misdemeanor courts, 22 district courts. Each of these courts have something like 1,000 cases on their caseload and only 3 prosecutors. And ostensibly, the chief prosecutor, who's one of those 3, doesn't really carry a caseload. So you divide that between 2 prosecutors, you're looking at 500 cases, which is way too many cases for one prosecutor to handle, certainly to focus on all the evidence. None of us carry caseloads anywhere near that.
Sure.
So to ask a prosecutor to both learn how to be an excellent prosecutor, to read case law, to be doing to go to the police agencies and search for evidence that they may not know about, and also be prepared for 8, 9, 10, 11 cases for trial on one day. I remember one time when I was a very baby prosecutor in Court 4 when Judge Clinton had just taken the bench, and I tried 3 different cases. I went to trial 3 times in 1 week. In 2 months, I went to trial 9 times. How are you supposed to get any other work done when you're constantly in trial?
And you pick up a case you barely looked at and have to turn around and try it.
Right.
Which I think that's a fair argument, Phil. I think being overworked, it can lead to cutting corners.
Right.
And that is unfortunate and it's tragic. And there are a lot of ways that can be alleviated. More prosecutors, maybe charge crimes that should be charged and let some of this little petty stuff go. There's a lot of ways you can go about that. But does that in any way excuse or give an excuse for unethical behavior?
Absolutely not, no.
Phil, you had talked about the threats that Connie Spence had made on a DEA agent. We've heard rumors, a lot of the defense bar has heard rumors of things such as that. I hadn't heard that specific allegation, but I've heard rumors, and I'm not going to name names because I don't know facts for sure, but we've often heard rumors about prosecutors hiding witnesses under aliases in the Harris County Jail so that defense lawyers couldn't find them, or instructing other witnesses not to, or if a defense lawyer calls them, not to return their call or not to talk to them. But I'm really concerned about the threats being made upon a witness by a prosecutor. That just seems completely out of bounds to me.
Right.
You used the word systemic early in the show with regard to these findings. You hear stuff like that, intimidating witnesses, instructing them not to talk to defense lawyers when they call, or investigators who work for a defense lawyer on behalf of them. And I just wonder, it seems to be a much broader problem than isolated prosecutors. And it seems to be that there's a teaching and maybe a culture that's developing that needs some sort of, cleansing. So that's the best word I can come up with.
I'll give you a perfect example. I'm sure we all have had several times where you have an assault family member and the prosecutor calls the alleged victim and they say, do you want your boyfriend to go to jail or get counseling? And how do you think that person answers? They've never dealt with this. They're not in this. They haven't been in the system. So they say, "Oh, I want them to get counseling." Well, they don't know that by saying that, they're basically saying this happened. He needs counseling. He's got an abuse problem, or they're saying all these things by that answer, but they don't give them they don't leave it open-ended. They give them a this or this. And even that right there is them putting words into a victim's mouth. And they all do it. I mean, I tell everyone now, when they call you and ask you, do you want counseling or jail? You say neither.
Right.
He doesn't need either of them.
Right.
Well, and to
I've
your
had that happen
point,
to me before as well. You know?
And to your point, Jimmy, you asked, is there a bigger problem? And to go back to what you were saying, Damon, about the way that the office works and progresses. If you are a standout prosecutor, if you're a Connie Spence, a Kelly Sigler, one of the things that the office does is they rotate you to first what they call the deputy dog sometimes in misdemeanor, or the chief of the misdemeanor bureau. And as the chief of the misdemeanor bureau, Connie Spence was my chief of the misdemeanor bureau when I was there. And when you're the chief of the misdemeanor bureau, your sole job is to train baby prosecutors.
Absolutely.
So you've got the Kelly Siglers, the Connie Spences, who are training our beginning prosecutors how to be prosecutors, and we've got to, like you said, we've got to get folks who have ethics, who have integrity doing those jobs.
I think that also, I had a conversation with a friend of mine named today, Amy, and she expressed a sadness at the possibility that Kelly might lose her license, that she might get disbarred. Not because she liked Kelly. Amy has been practicing for maybe 2 years, maybe 2 years, has no idea who Kelly is. Just the idea of somebody losing their license after working so hard for it, and really, when you're a lawyer, you can only really be a lawyer with a license, right? You can't take our license and go do accounting or financial work.
Well, there's some people who practice law without a license.
That's true. There you go. But the point I was making is, I think now, when Kelly did this, and before now, there was really no punishment for prosecutorial misconduct.
Yeah. Right.
There was no fear of it. And there was actually more fear of not getting a conviction than doing the right thing. And now that hopefully the state bar steps up and says, they did it with Ken Anderson, hopefully with Kelly, depending on how it shakes out, they would do something. Maybe not disbar, but maybe something to set an example that if you lose, that's fine. But if you're unethical, that is not fine.
And certainly there's something tragic about someone who is as talented as Kelly Sigler never being able to do what she's skilled at again. But there's the other side who are calling for her head. The truth of the matter is that David Temple's been in prison now for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And there are people, and it's because she cheated.
Absolutely.
And what other cases did she do the same
That's
on that we don't know
exactly-
about?
Absolutely.
I mean, what are they going to go back and open up all the, or do you just look up the ones where people are still sitting in prison, or it could have changed thousands of lives.
Well, and the real irony, as we discussed before we went on the air, as we were sitting here talking, is that she was the special prosecutor on Anthony Graves' case. And after the Fifth Circuit overturned that case, it was Kelly Sigler who said that he's innocent. I don't see any evidence here, and this is the worst case, referring to Charles Sebesta, this is the worst case of prosecutorial misconduct I have ever seen. Mind you, that was some years after she had done this in this case.
Redemption.
Yeah, it's just like, gosh, I think I texted you, Damon. What did I say about that song? I know you're lying if your lips are moving.
Yeah, I think you didn't know who that song was, but I know.
Yeah.
He texted me the entire lyrics to the song. It's like, what is this song? And I was like, all right, come on.
My wife and son love to listen to that song, but I think it's very apropos here. I mean,
I agree.
Look, you say these things to the media and you get all the glory for looking like you're some high and mighty prosecutor who does the right thing, and when I see prosecutorial misconduct, I'm not gonna go any further. This is an actual innocence case. I can't believe this prosecutor did this. And
It's easy to point the finger at someone else.
right.
Always easy. Yeah. I mean, you can trace back to Meghan Trainor and her song, or to the Bible. There's a parable in the Bible that's like,
I choose pop culture.
I choose the Bible. And lucky Lisa, who speaks Hebrew, might be able to help us as well.
I wouldn't go that far.
But there's a parable in the Bible that Jesus says to somebody, before you point out the fleck in my eye, get the plank out of yours. And it's like, to me, that's the exact same thing here. Kelly, looking at somebody else, can easily see their egregious behavior and point out all the deficiencies and unethical behavior, but looking inward, doesn't see that hers was that way. And I'm actually curious. I've never spoken with Kelly, but I'm curious if she even believes what she did was unethical.
Right.
You know, and that could be another problem.
And to stick with your biblical theme here, pride goeth before a fall. And I think that
every single time.
Ken Anderson, when he did what he did, didn't think that he was doing something unethical. John Bradley didn't think he was doing unethical. And I don't think that Kelly Siegler believed that she was doing anything unethical. She truly believed, I believe, she probably truly believed that that David Temple was guilty, and probably didn't think, she had what I like to call the Jack McCoy syndrome. Law and Order, this prosecutor who believes that the ends justify the means, and the truth is that they don't.
But she was going up against her nemesis. I mean, she and Dick have had a long-standing battle royale, and I truly believe that, obviously I can't, I wasn't there. I don't know for a fact, but seems to me after you read this, like you said, Lisa, it's win at all costs.
Right.
I want to go. Rob Fickman, our good friend Rob, tweeted at us already, and I'm glad he did.
Right.
But he pointed out that the defense bar led readings in 139 Texas counties last week for the Declaration of Independence. HCCLA, obviously a big part of that, and Rob has spearheaded that.
Yes.
He's been the torch carrier on that.
Hats off to Rob.
And yeah, big time. And I know we have a lot of HCCLA members who participate in that here, and some who participate in other counties. But when you, and I want to bring it up because why are there no prosecutors there? Why, guys?
And you know what's funny, Rob, when we were reading he mentioned seeing some judges, and I was like, oh, I know that judge. And he said some prosecutors, and I didn't see a single one.
Right.
I saw some who were walking by and looking at us funny, like we were doing something no good, reading the Declaration of Independence, but I didn't see any stand there. And I once again, I'm not going to put a malicious intent behind that. I don't know if they're not allowed to, and if it looks bad upon them to be at a defense bar function so public.
In front of a public courthouse? In their home?
Yeah. Well, and I hate to
home
play.
as well.
I hate
It's our
to
home
be
as well,
the.
Jimmy.
I don't want to be the defender of the DA's office tonight. But I don't know. Did we send an invitation to the prosecutors, an email or anything like that? Because I know that it was heavily pushed among our organization, and also we did have it was in front of the public courthouse, but we did also have the big HCCLA banner behind us. So certainly public perception could be, and maybe we need to do something in the future.
Be interesting
to
if
make
you invited them to be co-sponsors of it, if they would even want to. I mean, I don't know. Would they
Well,
feel?
there's nothing.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't see.
I don't- I'm not spearheading that.
The Declaration of Independence applies to everyone, whether you're a prosecutor,
Right.
a defense
I
lawyer,
know.
a defendant, a victim. I mean,
Citizen or not citizen.
Right.
We all get the same rights here.
You all get the same rights. If you're in this country, you get the benefit of that, whether you're here legally or not.
Right.
So, I don't know. This is going to be going on, obviously, for a long time. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Kelly Siegler and what comes out of it. And
It's just interesting how close to home it hit. I mean,
It
we've
is.
watched it now from afar, a little bit from Michael Morton, and then a little
Yeah.
closer with Anthony, and now here we are. It's right here
In our own
our
backyard.
own backyard. I mean, with people we know in our community.
Yeah, and I hope you guys, even if you're not on the show in the future when we talk about this, that you guys will be part of the conversation and help
For
us
sure.
do that. But I want to turn to some other stuff, and I
Well,
want to
we
remind
actually have
our
another
viewers.
question from our Twitter follower.
Oh.
And he asks, and I guess this is for anybody who does appellate work. I don't do appellate work, so I can't answer this one. Did Judge Gist save Ms. Siegler by finding there was not a sustainable actual innocence claim? So do you think by putting them in there, he kind of saved her? He may have blasted her a little bit, but in the end, she'll be okay.
I don't think actual innocence has anything to do with the 36 points of failure to turn over exculpatory evidence. That's just my take on it.
I'll agree with you as well.
Because doesn't it just remand it back to a new trial? I mean,
Well, but if the question is, does it save Kelly from anything? Whether or not he was actually innocent is immaterial if the bar decides to pursue anything,
Right.
Or if there's any kind of ethical action against her. I don't think an actual innocence claim matters one iota on that.
Or criminal charges. I mean, the truth
Right.
is, that Larry Gist accused her of perjury.
Yeah.
She did testify during the habeas corpus hearing, and even that was fantastic. So, all right, I agree. I think if he's actually innocent, that would make the situation worse. because I can't imagine spending one day in jail for a crime I didn't commit and then spending 10 years in prison. And we've heard Anthony Graves on the show. We've heard Michael Morton talk about the horrors of spending so much time in prison, killing a loved one. And, you know, Michael Morton was a loved one, his wife as well. Anthony Graves was just maybe some random he didn't know.
Right.
But to be Michael Morton, to be accused of killing your wife, and spend all that time, I mean, that's something that's horrific. So
It truly is, and you know, like I said, we're gonna keep on this topic, and we'll follow it throughout its conclusion or pendency, whatever, wherever it goes from here. But it is 8:30. We're gonna open up our phone lines. Phone numbers at the bottom of your screen: 713-807-1794. Call in with your questions for us, and as always, you can, like I said, tweet us your questions or comments at HCCLA_TV. And I don't know, do we have a call? No, we don't have a call yet. Okay. It's not there yet. But so while we're waiting, I want to turn to our some of our next topics and some of the current events that's going on in this newsworthy week. And first couple I want to get to national topics. And first, Jared Fogler, Subway.
Jared.
Charged with, well, not charged yet. Investigated. The
big difference.
FBI raided his home on suspicion of child pornography. They seized some stuff, and his assistant. Yeah, there's Jared on the screen there. That's how we all know him. Good pitch man. Obviously, it was a good campaign. A lot of people lost a lot of weight following his Subway diet.
He made a lot of money.
He did make
So
a
did
lot of money.
Subway.
He did make a lot of money.
Subway did
It's
too.
the
Subway did
longest
as well.
fast food running campaign, because I started when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And that's almost 15, 20 years.
But he, apparently he has said that it was an assistant of his. That's his defense. And whatever it is, he hasn't been charged.
Right.
We don't know anything yet. But my question is, whatever happens in this case, whether he's charged and eventually exonerated of it, or if he's never charged, how does he beat this? How does he recover from this? Because we always say, in representing our clients, you may beat the rap, but it's difficult to beat the ride. And child pornography, having that tattoo on you,
It's not good.
not good.
No, I think Subway already dropped him, is what I
They've
heard.
suspended.
Or suspended. But I mean, his public image is shot. Whether he had any knowledge of this or not, his public image is destroyed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he needs to beat it because he's got all that money in the bank, but at the same time, I'm sure he wants to save face. I'm sure if he has nothing to do with it, it's a horrible thing to have attached to you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The first thing that I think that our viewers who aren't criminal lawyers would probably want to know is, what does it take for law enforcement to go into Jared's home?
Right.
They have to have probable cause to believe that evidence of a crime exists in his home, and then they have to have specifically articulable things that they're looking for. In this case, I don't know if we've seen the search warrant. I looked for it this week. I couldn't find it in the public records of the Zionsville
It's
County,
probably
Boone
still
County.
sealed.
You're probably not going to because it was federal search
federal,
warrant,
so it's
that's
probably
Oh, right,
sealed.
that's right. So the interesting thing, though, is it doesn't have to necessarily be evidence of a crime that Jared committed. So here we are in sort of the court of public opinion saying Jared, and child porn in the same sentence, but it very well may be that Jared's completely correct, that maybe they saw a file extension. In fact, I read this week that they did see file extensions in his employees' files that just had kind of the name of the foundation on it. And maybe they said, well, then maybe Jared has something, and they just need probable cause, a low bar.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't have child porn, and they're looking.
Kind of frightening for the rest of us. I mean, you get that pop-up that pops up on your computer, and you're like, what does that open me up to? I mean, that's a little frightening.
And most of these cases are made on computer forensics. And they're very difficult in a lot of cases to defend if the IP address that's used is coming from your home.
Right. And that's your provider, your internet provider has that IP address.
Correct.
Even, of course, to Jared's case, it's even more difficult if the pictures are there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's hope not.
Yeah, and even say that they do, where they find those files is going to be really material. If they find those files in a folder on his desktop labeled Jared's Kitty Porn, that's really bad for him.
pretty damning there.
Right, but if they go in and every law enforcement agency has software that they use that's forensic, and it catalogs where on the computer or thumb drive or whatever that these files are found. And if they're found, say, in the cache, which is something that people may not understand, is something that's involuntarily downloaded onto your computer. As you're clicking through the internet.
So that's the random pop-up that might come up.
That's exactly right. Especially, say Jared is your benign looker at regular pornography. It's not illegal. It's not advisable, but it's not illegal. But
We don't advise
not
you.
advisable.
but pornography.
On the show now. I said the Bible, but you still look at your porn.
Man, you're making our viewers at home shut their laptops real quick and close down browsers. Not advisable. What?
Bill says the only thing on your computer right now is reasonable doubt.
That's
and
right.
it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but those pop-up windows may come up, and and say those pop-up windows come up, you click them down as quick as you can, but that one kiddie porn image that may be found in your cache.
So clear your cache.
Well, and actually, interestingly,
how you advise people?
No, even if you clear your cache, the way that hard drives work is they just tag them for deletion. They don't actually get it off of your hard drive. So those images may very well still
have
be
some
there.
seminars on how to get rid of all this stuff off people's computers.
And Lisa, to take it
How
a
to
step
tamper with
further,
evidence, right? Yeah.
even if you format your hard drive, if you erase it, those files are still there. Like Phil said, they don't go away. And so the really only true way to erase a hard drive, one, is to physically destroy it, which some corporations, like when I was at Halliburton, we would do that. Whenever a server is being deconstructed and we upgrade it, we would take those hard drives out, we'd erase them, and then literally destroy them.
Right.
Because,
Stomp on them?
Yeah, break them, unscrew them. You unscrew it in this little CD, you snap it, and it's done. Because that data can still be there, and you don't want to get somebody jump in a trash can and steal Halliburton's data. The next thing is to get a scrubber, which literally writes data on every bit of the hard
Like
drive.
ones and zeros.
Ones and zeros, that's it. And so it takes like 2 or 3 days. It does 7 passes, and it just literally writes new data on it. And so you can't, retrieve it because the data's, like Phil said, it's been rewritten, so it's not there anymore.
But for our viewers at home, we are not recommending that you commit third-degree felony of tampering with evidence.
What we are saying is, if you look at porn, go to safe sites.
Well, let's move to the next celebrity in the news with a criminal issue this week, and this has been an ongoing one. Bill Cosby, with his troubles and allegations of sexual assault on women, drugging women to have sex with them, and this week came out.
That's a terrible picture of
That is
him.
a
Oh my
terrible
gosh.
picture.
Was he like winking?
Don't know, but that's a real creepy
He
picture
was
of him.
drugged on that picture.
We found the real creepster picture. The only thing missing is the
Jell-O.
white van.
The Quaaludes. It'd be a black van, sir. Everybody knows it's a darked out black tinted van cruising through the neighborhood. That's the creepster right there.
Whatever.
Did I see that in the parking lot?
But this week, a federal judge released and unsealed some deposition testimony, and apparently this judge was a little perturbed at the public position that Cosby has taken with regard to whether or not he drugged these women, and in the face of several of them making very serious allegations. The judge released the testimony, and he admitted that he obtained Quaaludes for women that he wanted to have sex with. He didn't say he didn't go.
He say drug them
all the
but
way.
He just said, and I've 2 thoughts on that one.
Yeah.
One, when you're Bill Cosby in the 70s and probably till now, you were rich, you were famous. I can't imagine sex is hard to get. Like, I just can't imagine.
Neither were Quaaludes.
Neither were Quaaludes, but why? If you have people who are willing to have sex with you, like I imagine any celeb with money has people willing to have sex with them, why go through the point of drugging them? And that's sick. And then the next point I have to that with Bill is, and it's back to it's kind of funny. What kind of fun is it having sex with somebody who's drugged out? Like that's just that all back to the same thing.
You've never experienced
No, I
that?
never experienced that. Maybe I should try it. It'll be my 10-year anniversary here in November, so
I'm
we'll
sure
figure
your
it out.
wife would like that one.
What do you guys think? Putting aside Damon's questions of the merits of
visibility.
having sex with drugged up people, what do we think about this deposition testimony? I mean, is it going to be? It's a 10-year-old case. It's testimony that's 10 years old.
About things that happened in the 70s.
Right. I mean, how?
But it's like Jared. It's like we're going back to the Jared story. it doesn't really matter whether
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know at this point, is he ever going to go to jail for this?
Well,
But
the LAPD has
public-
an open investigation or reopened the
Oh, they
investigation.
did because of this?
That's right.
Well, I don't know that specifically because of this, but after this came out, the LAPD admitted that they have an open investigation pending.
But now all these people who were like his supporters, no matter what, now are saying, oh, now we believe he might have really done this. And so, again, public opinion, I mean, if you didn't already think he might have done this, now you really would have a hard time defending that he did nothing wrong. I mean, that he
Yeah.
kind of closed that door.
But you know, Jimmy, I think that in contrast to Jared, he may not beat the rap or the ride.
Right.
Because in LAPD, they've got a young lady who says that she was raped by Bill Cosby using almost the exact same fact pattern as the other 38 women who've accused him of raping them, which is that he gave me a prescription drug in a drink. I drank it. Then I felt the same symptoms, the dizziness, the forgetfulness, and I woke up in some state of undress. Now, ordinarily, we criminal lawyers know that allegations of prior bad conduct are not admissible in a trial, but there's an exception for a common plan or scheme. And this is exactly the kind of thing that could cause a judge to allow the testimony of a string of 38 women, all talking about their sexual assault by Bill Cosby from the 1970s to now, which very well may cause not only conviction in that case, but a very serious punishment from Bill Cosby.
And to further answer your question, Jimmy, we are assuming that there's no statute of limitations on any sexual assaults that may have occurred in LA. You know, certainly in Texas, in the 70s, there was a statute of limitations, but today there's not.
Right.
So in LA might be different. They may have never had a statute of limitations, so it's possible it could result in a criminal investigation.
My understanding is there's only one of these charges of the 39 women who've come forward so far that's within the statute of limitations in California. So it's just this one kind of linchpin to hang Cosby's charges on, but it very well may be enough.
But now that this has come out, maybe more will come out of the woodwork. I mean, more people will come out of the woodwork because they'll see that they're actually being listened to and believed.
That's
I mean, all these other
certainly been
women
the
have felt so alone through this whole process.
Right.
Well,
So-
I think, I'm sorry to cut you off, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is, at least from me, and when they first came out with Bill, I was on the fence because a lot of these allegations were from like 30, 40 years ago. And I felt like, why wait till the man's almost 80 years old to bring this up? If he's been a celebrity the entire time. He's not stopped being a celebrity. So you could have brought it up when Cosby Show first started, when Cosby Show was the #1 comedy on TV, when every single time Bill Cosby would berate another comedian for being morose or overly sexual, when he would berate Eddie Murphy for his jokes. Bring it up then. So there's been plenty of opportunities to come out and say, hey, Cosby, you're just really being a hypocrite. Why now?
Well, but you know, Damon, the storyline has come out to answer that, which is that in the 70s and 80s, Bill Cosby was powerful in a way he is not powerful today. He was the it guy. And he had people in his entourage who he paid to specifically silence these women. Bill Cosby or his entourage said to them, you won't ever speak of this again. And when Bill Cosby of 1975, 1980, 1985 says, never speak of this again, or the implication is you're not going to work again.
Right.
And that's a great reason why these women, in addition to the normal, what we know about sexual assault victims is that there's a lot of shame that goes along with being a sexual assault victim, a lot of embarrassment, especially when you've been drugged and you're not totally sure what happened. Coming into a court or to a police station or in front of a news camera and to say, I was sexually violated and I don't even remember what happened, it's very difficult.
Right, that's a good point. I didn't know that part of his power behind the angle, but that is a good point because that's always bothered me.
Yeah.
I want to move local now, and while we're on this topic of men treating women badly, let's go down I-45 to Galvatraz, the island, and talk about former judge Christopher Dupuy. This guy's a real piece of work. I never appeared in front of him. I don't know if any of y'all have, but I've heard several stories about just the utter, there's a term for it, and it precedes craziness that we can't say on the air, but this guy was apparently a piece of work. And
Would you say bat poop crazy?
Correct. And his mugshot is really something else. But he was charged this week or last week with online impersonation. And apparently what he did was he went on some, for lack of a better term, escort or hooker websites and put up.
Not Tinder.
No, not Tinder. And put up some
Backpage.
fake.
Page.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
there you go. And put up some fake profiles of ex-girlfriends
Oh,
of his.
lovely.
Yeah. And I guess the first thing I want to kind of get y'all's impressions on is the validity of this statute. Will it hold up? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about this. Mark Bennett,
I was just going to say,
fellow
I thought
HCCLA
Mark
member.
Bennett already destroyed the statue.
Yeah, he did, and you know he's made some pretty good comments on Twitter about he'll be looking for a First Amendment lawyer. What do we think? Do you think this statute holds up?
I mean, I thought it was already gone. I guess I'm not that well educated on what Mark has destroyed by virtue of the statute.
Well, I think Mark destroyed the online solicitation,
But
not the online
impersonation is still there.
impersonation. I don't think the impersonation aspect of it has been challenged yet. Our hired gun who will travel, Mark Bennett,
There
he
you go.
will. He may want to take a trip down there.
Well, as an aside, I don't think Judge Dupuy can afford him because I have it on good authority. He has an appointed attorney.
No, I saw hired. He hired Fox Curl.
Oh, well, good. Congratulations, Fox is a good guy.
Yeah, which is interesting because I also saw that I think Judge Dupuy is in his second bankruptcy right now.
Right. He's not rich. He's lost his
Yeah.
money, and Mark is not cheap. So.
So Fox can submit his fee vouchers to the bankruptcy courts.
To answer your question, Jimmy, do I think it'll hold? I don't know. I don't know anything about the statute to really give a great answer as to whether I think it's constitutional. But it sounds to me like maybe not. I mean, it sounds unfortunate, and definitely there should be some civil liability behind what he's done. But should there be criminal liability behind that? My gut tells me I don't think it should be.
I mean, it's just bizarre. It's just a bizarre case. That
I'm kidding.
bizarre.
Yeah,
You have to be a real sick individual to even do that in the first place. Don't you?
yeah. Well, and the
And you're a
facts.
public figure.
Right.
Yeah.
Or former public. Was he already
Right.
an ex-judge when
Yeah,
it
he
happened? But I
was,
mean,
yeah.
clearly, he knew everybody's out to get him, and he's going to do this where he's opening himself up to.
And there was some other misconduct. He's been charged before.
Oh, right. That's what I'm
This
saying.
This is not. Yeah.
He's under the eye of everyone in that county. They were all out to get him for a long time.
Yeah,
I saw
he's a
somebody-
frequent flyer in the criminal justice system down there.
He is. Even when going back to when he was first elected, he was already facing some misconduct charges from his law practice before he even took the bench. He was still addressing those. Bankruptcy charges during his time on the bench, and even the nature of these allegations are just bizarre. I mean, he used in one Backpage ad his ex-girlfriend's Facebook picture, and the other it was a photograph, a sext. That the girlfriend had sent during their relationship. Just bizarre behavior. It's hard to find the thoughts that might have been running through his head to think that those were good ideas.
Ladies, make sure on Tinder that you don't run across that guy. He's
Yeah.
not a good ex-boyfriend to come across.
We'll posterize his mugshot everywhere so people know.
I think if you're local to Galveston or Houston and you don't know not to date Judge Dupuy, whatever happens to you, I don't know, because that guy has, even his divorce, in that situation with his divorce was wrought with all kinds of.
Oh yeah, they're saying he threatened to kill his ex-wife and then take the kids and run off to New Zealand or something.
His entire MO in regards to women has been one of maltreatment, complete disdainment, and just utter disgust. And so I don't see. Like I said before, I think if you are a woman and you're dating him, then man, it's like no offense. If you're a woman and you date O.J. Simpson, watch out. I don't.
Or
You go
you
into
go to
it
the
with your
bar
eyes wide
or
open.
you go to the bar with Bill Cosby.
You go to,
Right.
or, if Bill Cosby gives you some Jello, I mean,
You just run the other way.
Better have somebody else taste test it.
right? Bill, you eat it first.
Yeah.
You eat it first and tell me what it is.
Let's move to our good friends over at Whataburger, because I love Whataburger.
Well, who doesn't?
I mean,
Well, I keep kosher, so I can't eat Whataburger. I mean, I can eat the egg and cheese sandwich, but that's about it.
can you eat the taquitos?
Well, as long as they don't have meat in them. But I mean, who really goes to Whataburger if you can't eat the meat? Sorry.
That's true.
Well,
She speaks the
Fair
truth.
point.
she does.
It's
Can't
logic.
you get the honey chicken biscuits?
No,
Can you
no
eat
chicken,
You
no
can't eat chicken?
meat, no.
Andy,
It's
you're
it's very sad. My kids will never know what Whataburger tastes
Kosher?
like till they go to college.
Well, you won't have to deal with
Rebel.
Whataburger. Well, you won't have to deal with Whataburger and their open carry policy. So that's one less problem in
Right,
your
one
life.
less problem. Right.
Whataburger announced
Lisa,
this.
I will tell you, if your kid's rebellion is just eating Whataburger,
I will be so lucky if that's all they do.
You made it out pretty well.
Whataburger announced this week that they are not going to allow people to open carry, regardless whether you have the ability to or not, whether you're properly licensed to. Whataburger has publicly stated now they are not going to allow people to open carry in any of their restaurants.
And they are as Texas as it comes. How can they? I mean, what are they going to have someone standing at the door policing for you not to be able to carry your gun in their restaurant?
Well, the new law, so this is actually a great opportunity to inform our viewers about this law that was just signed into law and kicks in September.
Correct.
If you are a concealed handgun holder, currently there are places that you're not allowed to carry, and there's a sign in the statute. It's under 30.06. It's easy to remember because it's 30-06.
Which is a rifle, by the way, for a gun, if anyone doesn't know.
I didn't know where that number came
Yeah.
from.
Right.
For those of you who are, the hunters will know, but
Right. So in 30-06, it gives statutory language and a sign that businesses can post to say no concealed guns here. So now 30.07 will say no open carry here, and it will be an offense to carry where you see a 30.07 law. Now, practically speaking, the thing that I think is really important about this new statute is that it's a nod to the gun lobby without giving them any real rights. Because even though the legislature has said that it's lawful to carry your gun outside your clothing now in a place where it can be seen, they've told law enforcement, go ahead and stop anybody without reasonable suspicion, which is what you need right now,
Yeah.
to stop and detain anyone. They say, go ahead and detain anybody if you see a gun on their person. So the trade-off that you're giving as a gun owner who wants to wear their lawfully carry their gun in plain view is that you can be stopped by a police officer at any time for any reason.
how many other businesses are going to do this and follow suit? Because as you said, Lisa, Whataburger is about as Texas gets.
Right.
I mean, how many Buc-ee's are we going to see? Buc-ee's do this? Are we going to see some of the barbecue places do this? Some other really Texas establishments? Are they going to follow suit?
Absolutely. And certainly you can believe that any bank or financial institution will not allow this to happen. And I don't know if you can federally even do that. I mean, but certainly any place that deals with money will not allow a concealed or open carry a gun on their premises.
I generally wouldn't think it's a good idea to carry a gun in a bank anyway.
I agree with you.
Probably
but
setting yourself up for problems there.
I think it's not a good idea to take pictures of my ex-girlfriend and put her on Backpage, but and I'm a different kind of guy. I think any place that sells alcohol will for sure follow the same policy and not let concealed open guns there, and I don't think they're allowed anyways. Lastly, I think any place that is for family, so like Chuck E. Cheese, any place where kids are there, any place where it's for a family environment, probably won't let that happen either, which would include restaurants.
And that makes a great point, Damon, which is, when I first saw the story, I thought, and many of my, conservative friends thought, well, I'm not eating a Whataburger anymore. Boy, we're going to boycott. But then I read the CEO's statement, and he said, softball groups, church groups, like you said, Jimmy, Whataburger is a Texas staple. And because we're a Texas staple, we're a family place. And our employees and the softball groups and the church groups have told us if we're sitting down and having a hamburger, we don't feel comfortable seeing people who aren't law enforcement wearing guns around. And the CEO just listened. And I think one of the things that's important is to contrast the CEO of Whataburger to, say, like Mr. Schultz at Starbucks, who with Starbucks, he said, I have a moral agenda, and I'm going to push it, and I don't care, customers, if you disagree with me, go get your coffee somewhere else. But what Whataburger said is customers, employees, were listening to you, and I have my finger on the pulse of what my customers want, what my employees want, and we're going to do it to make sure that they feel safe.
Here's my question. If you're saying you don't think any banks, any restaurants, anywhere that serves alcohol, any
Already illegal, by the way, to have a firearm anywhere that gets more than 50% of their profits from alcohol.
Okay, but so where are you carrying?
Exactly. Like to your car. I mean, I just imagine
on a walk.
like Phil said,
Yeah.
I think it's just you're going to be able to carry your gun from your car to your house,
The gun range.
to the gun range. I mean,
This is essentially a meaningless right. And
It is.
and another thing to point out too is, and sorry to interrupt.
No.
Especially here in Houston, nothing is going to change because it's already lawful to carry a long gun wherever you go, and you don't see AR-15s, you don't see AK-57 or AK-47s, you don't see people carrying around their shotguns over their shoulders. You might see it out in the country, somebody who's maybe afraid to run into a snake or a coyote, but you don't see it here in the city, and I don't think you're going to see the short guns being carried around either.
I think this bill is predominantly for people in the country, and I think they don't need it. I mean, seriously, if you're in a small town and you have your gun on your hip, I don't think the people care about you. If you know it, if they know you, I think, like we've had before, people in the city, I do not want to go places where people are walking around with guns.
And I want to, since we're on the topic of the open carry policy and gun control in general, I mean, here in Texas, we have a very open dialogue about it. We've got the laws in place, and there's been a lot of debate about it. But over the July 4th weekend, Chicago saw one of the most deadly and violent weekends ever. 82 people shot, 15 dead. Chicago has the strictest gun laws in the country of any city. You cannot, there's not a gun store in the city, you can't buy ammunition in the city, and yet this happens.
Yeah, which is to NRA, any person who likes guns, that's your example of restricting gun use does not work.
Right.
Now maybe, I will offer this counter argument. Maybe it doesn't work because it doesn't make sense to restrict in a small dot of a place in the United States and say everybody else can have guns. So you can go outside of Chicago, get all the guns you want, you can get it in Chicago. So it's kind of hard to really have the envisioned effect of a proper gun control on a national level when you only have it on a local level.
But isn't it the same thing we have going on with drugs? I mean, look, all the drugs and the cartels in Mexico. It's not legal here, but now it's legal. Weed is legal in Colorado and Washington, and we see no issues. We see no issues.
We actually see a lot of tax dollars. Oregon
exactly
has made a lot of tax dollars off of Washington. I mean, off of marijuana.
And Colorado.
Colorado. I mean, they've made a lot of tax dollars.
I mean, the reality is you're not going to ban guns in this country. That's just, it's not going to happen. The vocal minority, I think, are the ones who are very much against the guns. And they're the ones you always hear out there about, we need to get rid of guns. But I think there's a silent majority out there, the people, and a lot of liberals who are card-carrying gun people and believe in gun rights. They may be the most liberal person around, but I think there's a lot of people who won't necessarily be vocal about it, but they got their concealed carry permit and they support all the other liberal causes, but don't take my gun.
Well, I think it goes to the issue is I don't want to be punished for the wrongdoers. I do things right.
Right.
So I don't want to lose my guns because other people in this country can't take care of responsibility properly. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, it's sort of like you said at the open of this topic. What this demonstrates is exactly what you're saying. You know, if you ban guns, then what you're really saying is the only people allowed to have guns are the people who are going to get them unlawfully.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and which makes the minority, the people who are law-abiding citizens who are then unarmed, that much easier to fall prey to crime. I don't know that that's what's going on in Chicago, but certainly Chicago does demonstrate that principle.
I mean, I've said this before to everybody I know. In Harris County and in Houston, about every 9 months, there's like a rash of home burglaries and a rash of home invasions. And then it comes to a stop when one of them gets shot. You know, and so you want to stop people breaking into your house, shoot one of them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people think about it for a little while. Then it'll uptick again, and then one of them gets shot. They think about it for a little while. I have no problem with gun ownership. I don't see it. And I think Chicago is a great example of how when you penalize the law-abiding citizens and take away their rights to protect themselves, you leave open the door for whatever. That plus, laws on the books don't stop illegal gun trade. So you can have all the laws on the books, all you want about not having guns, they're still there.
Yeah, you gotta be able to enforce them. We only got about 30 seconds left, guys. I want to thank y'all for coming on. It's been a great show. Really appreciate you coming on, and we love having the board members on here on our show. It's really great to have the organization behind us. We appreciate
Thank you
all
for
y'all do.
inviting us.
I want to take the opportunity since we have 3 board members here.
Maybe 4 one day.
Maybe 4 one day.
Maybe 4 one
But I really do want to thank everybody on the board out there for your support of this show, giving us the budget to do this show. We've done a lot of improvements. We're going to make some more improvements hopefully in the next month or so, and we hope to make this a better program. But I want to thank you guys. Thank you, Phil Gommels, Lisa
you for having
Shapiro-Strouds. We really appreciate you coming on, and hope to get you back on soon.
Thank you.
Damon Parrish,
Absolutely, Jimmy.
you and me will be back next week.
You know, this week started off, and I was really concerned about what our topics are going to be. So now I'm excited for next Thursday.
Oh, we got a ton.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like something's going to happen.
I'm gonna call in next Thursday.
There you go.
You know, you
I'm
guys are
calling
always
in.
invited back, so just
I'm gonna call in.
Call in, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you so
Thank
much.
y'all. We appreciate you who tweeted in tonight. We didn't get any calls, but you know, we'll try to do better on the calling in next week. We
Rob,
thank y'all who joined us tonight. We'll see you next week. Good night.